Ever picture yourself at, like, a boot camp?
Yeah.
Yelling drill instructor, rows of new recruits. We're diving deep into that world today, kinda, but way more elite. Armed Forces training and education officers, that's our focus.
Yeah, it's not just about push-ups and who shouts the loudest. RoleCatcher, they get into this. It's about taking those recruits, turning them into effective soldiers, officers even, which
Oh,
means...
brains AD brawn. Right.
Exactly. You got to have the theoretical knowledge, but also how to apply it in high-pressure situations. And that's where this role gets really interesting, because RoleCatcher is very clear on one thing.
You don't become a teacher of officers without having been one.
That's it. Experience is non-negotiable here.
Yeah.
Every training and education officer, they've walked the walk themselves, they've been officers, they understand the demands firsthand.
So it's that credibility, right? Like, I've been in your booths, literally, now let me show you how to lead. But what does that actually look like? Because when I think military training, I'm thinking, like, weapons handling, combat tactics.
Which is definitely part of it. But RoleCatcher reveals the surprising breadth of what these officers need to teach.
Hit me with it.
We're talking international law. Things like the Geneva Conventions, for instance, global politics, even understanding like evolving defense strategies. It's a lot more classroom than boot camp in many ways.
Whoa, so strategic thinking on a global scale. That's heavy stuff.
Absolutely. It's about shaping the future minds of the military, not just their physical strength. And that's what makes this career path so fascinating and, frankly, pretty demanding. RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat that either.
Speaking of which, let's not shy away from the realities here. Every job has its ups and downs, and something tells me this one is no exception. So yeah, ups and downs, I bet.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? What does RoleCatcher highlight as the nitty-gritty, the make-or-break stuff?
Well, they're upfront about it, that's for sure. Frequent relocations, for one. You're at the whim of the military, right? Deployments, too, often on short notice. And yeah, potentially dangerous situations are on the table.
So not exactly a 9-to-5 desk job then. More like always be ready to pack your bags and, oh yeah, maybe face some danger while you're at it. Intense.
You got it. Resilience, adaptability, those are non-negotiables. And it's not just mental toughness either, though you need that in spades. Physically demanding, that's another thing RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from.
Right, because I was going to ask, the work environment itself, I mean, is it all boot camps and obstacle courses or what?
It's a mix, honestly. More nuanced than just that Hollywood boot camp image. You might be at a structured setting like a military academy, super formal, or a specialized training facility, all high-tech.
But then you said field exercises, right?
Oh, yeah. Those definitely happen. And that's where that physical side comes in. You got to be able to keep up, lead by example, all that.
So you're giving a lecture on, I don't know, cybersecurity protocols one day, and next you're out in the field putting it into practice. Wild. And speaking of cybersecurity, something else RoleCatcher mentioned that caught my eye was this whole technology advances section. What's the deal with that? How's tech changing the game for these officers?
It's huge. I mean, think about it. Warfare is changing so fast, right? Technology's at the forefront. Drones, AI, all that. RoleCatcher emphasizes that today's training and education officers, they can't be stuck in the past. They have to be on top of those advancements.
So it's not just teaching soldiers how to fight, but how to fight in a future that's like hyper-driven by technology. Makes sense.
Exactly. You're prepping them for a battlefield that barely exists yet in some ways. And that means, as an officer, you're constantly learning, adapting those training programs.
Okay, so we've talked about the demands, the tech. It's clearly a lot to handle. But let's say someone's listening and they're thinking, challenge accepted. What does the path even look like to become a training and education officer? Where do you even begin? So where do you even begin? I mean, what's the roadmap here? What does RoleCatcher say?
Well, you'd think it's all like military academies straight out of high school, but it's actually way more diverse than that. RoleCatcher has this whole section, academic pathways, and honestly, eye-opening.
Really? Like, what are we talking about here? Give me the rundown.
So yeah, military science, defense studies, those are kind of the obvious ones. But you see a lot of international relations grads, law degrees even. Psychology is huge. It's surprising.
Psychology. So it's that human element again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding how people tick, especially under pressure.
Bingo. It's about shaping leaders, right? Not just teaching tactics. But okay, let's say you've got the degree. You're ready to mold some minds. What's that first job actually look like? Early career, according to RoleCatcher.
Yeah, because no way they throw you into designing a whole training program right off the bat, right?
Not quite, no. Early on, it's a lot of assisting senior officers, getting those training materials prepped, maybe leading some basic physical training sessions. It's about learning the ropes, literally sometimes.
So more like Make sure those combat boots are shined, less, here's how to win a cyber warfare campaign.
Exactly. But even those small tasks, they matter. RoleCatcher gave this example, this junior officer. He was talking about how satisfying it was to update the obstacle course to reflect, like, new urban warfare tactics. Small change, but it impacts every single recruit.
I feel that. It's those little things that can make a real difference. So you're learning the ropes, paying your dues. What about climbing that ladder, though? Career progression. What's that look like for a training and education officer?
The more experience you rack up, the more autonomy you get. You could be designing entire training programs, leading workshops, even presenting at, like, military conferences, sharing your expertise.
So thought leader status, not just drill sergeant forever. Nice.
Right. And RoleCatcher was big on the mentorship aspect, too. As you rise up, you're expected to guide those newer officers, share what you've learned. It's a pretty cool cycle.
Passing the torch, making sure that knowledge keeps flowing. Love it. But, okay, real talk for a sec, getting your foot in the door, especially with a competitive field like this. The interview, right? That's got to be nerve-wracking. Any tips from RoleCatcher on acing that?
Oh, for sure. They had a bunch of sample interview questions, which, honestly, some were pretty tough, like really made you think on your feet.
Okay.
But instead of going through them all.
Yeah, let's cut to the chase. What were a couple of the big ones that really stood out to you?
Okay, one that I thought was really telling was all about handling difficult situations during training. Like, what do you do when a training exercise goes totally sideways? How do you adapt, lead under pressure?
Which, let's be real, in this line of work, pressure is kind of a given. They want to know you can handle the heat.
100%. And another one that stuck with me was about measuring program effectiveness. Not just like, did they pass the test, but are these training programs actually preparing soldiers for what they'll face in the real world? Are they adaptable?
It's about the long game then, right?
Yeah.
Not just checking boxes, but making sure those check marks translate into real-world readiness.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this career so unique. It's not just about teaching. It's about constantly evolving, anticipating future challenges, shaping the future of the military itself.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's up for that challenge, RoleCatcher is definitely the place to start. Not just for the info, but like you said, the networking, the mentorship. Those human connections are crucial no matter how tech-driven things get.
For sure. Couldn't agree more.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of armed forces training and education officers. It's demanding, no doubt, but also incredibly rewarding. You're shaping minds, leading the charge into the future of warfare, and let's be real, that's pretty darn cool. Just remember, the world's changing fast, so never stop learning, never stop questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one designing those training programs someday.